What if one of the most famous killers in history never had a name? London, 1888, a city wrapped in fog, fear, and silence. While the world slept, someone walked freely through the darkest streets of Whitechapel. He left no footprints, he made no mistakes, and he seemed to know exactly when no one was watching. The police searched for a man, but they found something far worse, a mystery that remains unsolved more than 100 years later. Because Jack the Ripper isn't just a faceless killer, he's proof that sometimes fear never truly disappears. London, 1888. While the British Empire presented itself to the world as the center of modern civilization, there was one place where that image completely fell apart: Whitechapel. A neighborhood marked by extreme poverty, poor sanitation, overcrowding, and institutional neglect. Dark streets, narrow alleys, packed housing. A place where thousands of people survived day by day with no real protection from the state. It was there that a series of crimes began, crimes that would change history forever. It all started almost silently. A woman found dead in the early morning hours, then another, and then another. At first, the police believed these were isolated incidents. Whitechapel wasn't a safe place, and violence wasn't unusual. But soon it became clear there was a pattern. The victims were women in extremely vulnerable situations. The attacks happened at night or in the early hours of dawn, always in public spaces, always with no witnesses, and the most disturbing part, the person responsible seemed to know the neighborhood perfectly, its timing and its shadows. The press soon stepped in. Newspapers began talking about an invisible killer walking freely through the fog of London. That's when a name appeared, one that would never be forgotten: Jack the Ripper. No one knows for certain who created it. It could have been a journalist, an anonymous citizen, or even someone connected to the investigation. But the name worked. It gave identity to fear, and it turned a series of crimes into a legend. Things escalated when letters began to arrive, messages sent to the police and the media, written in a mocking and provocative tone. Some promised more violence. Others openly laughed at the authorities' incompetence. To this day, no one knows how many of those letters were real and how many were copycats, but the damage was already done. Panic took over London. The police patrolled non-stop, but they lacked modern tools. There was no DNA analysis, no reliable fingerprint system, no criminal profiling. Investigations were based on confused testimonies, rumors, and social suspicion. Anyone could be Jack the Ripper: a butcher, a doctor, an immigrant, an aristocrat. Media pressure grew day by day, and with it, frustration. The crimes continued for months, each one increasing the sense of helplessness. The police questioned hundreds of people, followed false leads, made mistakes, and then, in the same way he had appeared, Jack the Ripper vanished. There was no arrest, no trial, no confession, only silence. Over time, the case became more than just a criminal investigation. It turned into a cultural phenomenon. For more than a century, historians, criminologists, writers, and amateur detectives have tried to uncover the truth. Dozens of suspects have been named, some with solid arguments, others based on conspiracy theories. Documents, letters, medical records, and police files have been analyzed. Even modern genetic studies have been attempted using old evidence. But no theory has ever been conclusive. And that may be the reason Jack the Ripper still fascinates the world. Because it's not just the story of a killer, it's the story of a system that failed, of a city that ignored its most vulnerable, of an era with no answers. Jack the Ripper represents the fear of the unknown, the idea that evil can exist without a face, without a name, and without punishment. More than 100 years later, the mystery remains open. And the question is still the same. Was Jack the Ripper a single person, or the result of a society that allowed someone like that to exist without ever being stopped? And maybe the real horror isn't that we never found out who Jack the Ripper was. It's that, even today, we're still trying to put a name on something that was actually an entire system failing. A city that looked the other way, a police force with no real tools, a society that only reacted when fear became news. Because if Jack never had a face, how do we know he ever disappeared? What if he wasn't a person, but a warning we're still choosing to ignore?